Bueno, buenos días, ¿cómo están? A todos los que van a asistir hoy. Gracias por estar acá. Entendemos que hoy día fue un día un poquito complicado porque ayer fue Halloween y los niños están fuera de clase hoy. Para los que pudieron llegar hoy, lo agradecemos. Para los que están en la computadora o online, ¿verdad? Estamos aquí para tratar de ayudarlos con información nueva. Mi nombre es Jimenez. Yo tengo a Arelis Arteaga, que es mi partner acá, y mi esposa. Y también trajimos a Wilson Enríquez, que nos va a ayudar con la presentación el tema de hoy es cómo ayudar a la gente, a usted mismo y a sus clientes con los property taxes. Cómo ahorrar dinero en los property taxes a sus clientes que no entienden a veces que por X motivo están pagando dinero extras en los property taxes cuando pueden tener descuentos por distintas cosas, ¿verdad? Como si han estado en el military, son personas que son VA y a veces no tienen la información correcta de cómo ellos entran en el sistema para ahorrar en los property taxes de las casas que han comprado, ¿verdad? Entonces el tema principal hoy es de cómo ayudar a la gente con los property taxes para que tengan ahorros. Porque hoy en día los property taxes, ustedes saben que hacen mucha diferencia en los pagos mensuales y todos los años suben, ¿verdad? Quizás si pueden aprender un poco de cómo los clientes pueden ayudar, pueden rebajar sus gastos de property taxes, los pueden ayudar para que todos los años tengan un bill menos, ¿verdad? Que obviamente va a influenciar en el pago mensual y al año de lo que las personas pagan en los taxes de la propiedad. Entonces, como le digo, estoy yo, Cristian, Arelis, y Wilson le va a ayudar a hacer la presentación. La va a hacer en inglés, lo de los property taxes, porque está más cómodo en inglés. Pero cualquier cosa, me preguntan a mí o a Arelis si tienen cualquier tipo de consulta sobre la presentación de los property taxes. Y el segundo tema va a ser cómo navegar en el mercado hoy día, ¿verdad? Con relación a programas y ventajas y soluciones que se pueden hacer en un mercado que está un poco apretado en estos momentos, pero hay muchas opciones como poder ayudar a los clientes temporariamente para que logren el sueño de comprar su casa, y para eso estamos acá, para buscar opciones y mostrarles qué opciones tienen para que ellos puedan comprar esa casa, que es su casa de sus sueños, y poder obtener el mortgage, ¿verdad? Les voy a introducir a Wilson Enrique, que es el presidente de Ideal Lending, de la compañía de nosotros, y él le va a mostrar la presentación y cómo se puede ahorrar con los taxes de la propiedad. Wilson?
Muchas gracias. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here. To everyone online, thanks for joining us. We know you've got a lot of stuff going on today, so we appreciate you being here with us to learn a little bit more about the real estate industry as a whole, and particularly when it comes down to your property taxes. Now, I'm sure like many of you, we've seen a lot of our costs go up, from property taxes, insurance, everything in the outside world. How many of you have seen costs go up? Show of hands. Pretty much everyone has seen all kinds of stuff go up. Well, and of course, you know, property taxes, unless you filed for your homestead, so if you have an investment property, second home, or you're buying another home, chances are property taxes are going to also go up. So what can we do to help make sure that whatever the county is telling us that our property taxes should be is accurate? Or, you know, are we not taking a benefit or advantage of some of the other exemptions we might have available, or the tax breaks that we might have available? How many of you heard of the homestead exemption? Probably all of us, right? But some of you may not have realized that there are other tax exemptions that you may be eligible for, or your family or your clients may be eligible for as well. So we want to take a deep dive into some of those to see how you can relay that same information to your family, to your clients, so that you can be that resource center, that place of information that's going to help them save money, bring value, because of course, like we all know, when we can bring value to our clients, they're going to want to refer business to whom? Us, right? So that's the idea. So there are two certainties in this world. You've probably heard this quote before, and it says, nothing is certain except death and taxes. And that statement could not be truer, because of course we all face with all these two things, sometimes a little bit more often than we want to, but when it comes down to a tax perspective, we deal with that every day, including our property taxes. So why even bother going through this step? Well, first of all, because property taxes do rise frequently. There are also properties with higher taxes that have a market disadvantage. So when you're trying to sell a home, let's face it, a lot of times the clients are going to be looking at what the overall monthly payment on that house is going to look like, right? Which the taxes are a big factor in that. So if taxes are higher on a property than they should be, that's going to put it at a disadvantage. Appealing your taxes can also put hundreds or thousands of dollars back into your pocket. Now, did you know so when people try to file for a value exemption or try to appeal their property taxes, the average rate of success is 20 to 40%, which means it's not a lost cause. Some people think, I really don't want to try it, it's probably going to be a waste of time. Well, 20 to 40% of the people on average see success in some sort of tax reduction, in some cases tax elimination, but it does depend on the jurisdiction, the quality of the appeal, which we're going to get to that in a minute, and how the process is and how much homework you've done to be able to submit to what's called the Value Adjustment Board, and the evidence that you provide. Some might see substantial savings, others might see none, or even just a little bit, but in many cases you'll at least know if it's going to be worth it after you start doing a little bit of homework. So, for example, in Florida, they are assessed starting in January, which means in January, the property appraiser's office has someone go out and determine the values of that home as of January 1. Right? That data is then provided to the taxing authority, and in most of our cases, every county has their own taxing authority, which then reports to the Florida Department of Revenue. But essentially, that data from the property appraiser's office works with, using Palm Beach County specifically as the example, works with Palm Beach County's tax collector's office to then determine how much the tax on that property should be. So you will probably see them in your mail. Now, mind you, this presentation was from a few weeks ago, and most of the time, the mail that you receive in mid-August will be something called your trim notice, right? That's essentially just what the estimated tax amount should be. And every county has a little bit of a different time period of when they're sent out. So that's why if you're going to do a process appeal, if you're going to appeal your taxes, you've got to do it before a certain deadline. All right, so appeals must be filed within 25 days of the trim being mailed. Now, Palm Beach County mailed them out September 12th. Broward County this past year mailed them out September 25th. Right, so every county will send the trim notice right around the same time, but usually within a few days of each other. And then you have just 25 days from the time that they've been sent, not from when you receive it, from the time that they've been sent, to be able to file an appeal if you think there's something incorrect, which means you've got a very short window of time. So you got to be ready for that kind of stuff, right? So the parties involved with coming up and figuring out what your taxes should be are going to be a few: the county property appraiser, the county tax collector, and then the county clerk and comptroller. Now, in the clerk and comptroller's office, you have what's known as the Value Adjustment Board, the VAB, and that usually is made up of 2 members of the County Board of Commissioners, 1 member of the County School Board, and 2 citizens of the county. So the general public is also involved by these 2 individuals, involved in determining property taxes for your homes, for all of our homes. So let's figure out what the terms really mean here. What essentially are we talking about when we talk about different market versus assessed value versus market value versus taxable value? What's the difference? Well, the market value is the current home value based on comps, right? You deal with this on an everyday basis. But that's what the current value is as of today. The assessed value is the value of the property as of January 1. So you will see the numbers be different. Right, because today's property value now in November 1, will be different than what it was January 1. So that's why you'll see those numbers fluctuate quite a bit. And sometimes there's discrepancies, and some people say, well, that's not what my home's worth. That's not the value of my house. Well, they're determining the value as of January 1. All right, and then the taxable value deducts all the exemptions, so stuff like the homestead exemption, maybe you have a senior citizens exemption or a veterans exemption. So the taxable value, the amount that you got to pay in taxes, is deducts all those exemptions and then multiplies that by the millage rate. Do you guys all know what the millage rate is or means? You know what that means, millage rate? I'm going to show you here in a second. And all the 3 numbers can and often are different, but this is a sample trim notice. Going back to the millage rate, to the trim. So the millage rate ultimately is the percentage that's determined by each municipality. Most of the time it's the county, and in many cases can be the city, right, depending on the municipality. So what kind of revenue do they need to operate? So each city, if they have their own municipality where maybe they have their own police department, or if they have their own fire department or other resources that they need to operate, they take that amount and essentially divide it into a formula, include it with the county's numbers, and then you come up with what's called the millage rate. That millage rate is the percentage multiplied by the assessed value of the property, and that's how you come up with your taxable value. So when you're sent the trim notice, it'll tell you what the millage rate is for your municipality. Out of curiosity, does anybody know what the word trim stands for? Pop quiz. Trim. You know what trim is, you've seen that, right? Every year, trim notice, but no one knows what it stands for. It's actually truth in millage. So your trim notice is your truth in millage notice. And that's essentially what's telling you how much your millage rate was for that year according to the budget, multiplied what they've assessed the value at your home, which is going to equal your taxable value. All right, so is your property description correct, first of all? Because this is the stuff that the county is giving you, and you should take a look at it and make sure that everything looks right. Are you getting taxed on something that is a 5-bedroom home when your home is really a 4-bedroom home? So those are the types of things you're gonna look for in the description when you're sent the millage rate, the trim notice is, what does the property appraiser have my house described as? What are the bedrooms? What are the bathrooms? What's the square footage of the home? Does it have a deck or a porch? Is there a deck or a porch listed in the property appraiser's sketch? But I don't have a deck or a porch. Where did they come up with that? That's a discrepancy, right? And those are the types of things that will increase your taxable value. So make sure you want to make sure that you essentially look at those. The acreage, lot size, does it have a pool? Is there a waterfront? Does it have outbuildings, like sheds, or maybe the mother-in-law quarters? We're all familiar with the mother-in-law quarters, right? Those are all different types of buildings. And mistakes are very common, and most of the time, you can just call the property appraiser, go through it with them, and they're very helpful. Most of the property appraisers at each of the county actually welcome you to call them. Go through it with them, and they'll fix it right away. So it's a fairly quick process for the phone, by just a quick phone call. So are you getting your discounts? Here are some of the various discounts that some of them we'll be familiar with, others not so much, and we'll go into some of the ones that you did not even know exist. Number one, the most popular, homestead exemption. Number two, senior citizens discounts. What is a senior citizen? It's usually 65 or older. Veteran discounts, anyone that's been in the military, especially if they've been hurt in the military, and they come over with some sort of a disability, they could very well be completely exempt from taxes. Disabled homeowners, which we'll touch up in a minute. Rebate programs based on your profession. Did you know that certain first responders might be eligible for discounts on their home property taxes? Reductions based on income level. So if you make less than a certain amount of the median income for that county, you may also be eligible for certain deductions. Energy discounts like solar, wind. We've seen solar panels going up on multiple roofs all over the place. It's a very popular and still growing source of energy. Agricultural discounts, and many times, well, first of all, if we didn't even know about them, there's no way that we would have been able to apply for them. And the thing is, you don't automatically get them unless you apply for them. So the majority of these discounts, you have to apply for. I'm sure some of you being realtors who obviously are doing a lot of purchase business, some of your clients may have come back to you 2 years, 3 years, 4 years later and said, what's homestead? What's a homestead thing? And you're like, oh my goodness, you never filed for a homestead. We need to get you to do that right away, right? Because they've been missing out on all those tax deductions, and that's one of the ones that obviously has to be applied for. So that's where you want to make sure that we are adding value to our clients as soon as we close, help them with that homestead process, because a lot of them don't know about it. So in Florida, agricultural classification can help you reduce your property taxes. If any of you have done stuff over, not the West Coast per se, but a little bit further west, so Loxahatchee area, you see a lot of this. And especially now as our population in Palm Beach County is continuing to grow, you'll see a lot of the western communities that don't have associations. Many of them have always been classified as agricultural properties. So their property taxes are going to be less than if it's categorized as a residential area. A widow/widower exemption, if they've lost their spouse, they may be eligible up to $5,000 every year off their assessed value until they get remarried, right? Which is it's a big deal. Limited income senior citizen exemption, up to $50,000 of a tax break, similar to the homestead, for being a senior citizen on limited income. How many of our senior citizens are growing continuously into that limited income category? Many. I know probably our grandparents, grandparents of our friends or our clients, a lot more are starting to fit into this limited income classification. So you can help them recognize that they might be eligible to save on their property taxes every year. Civilian disability exemptions, full or partial exemptions, which essentially means if you've been hurt, disabled, which we'll get to that in a minute. Living quarters of parents or grandparents exemptions. They call this the granny flat exemption. And the granny flat exemption essentially means if you are helping your parents, so for example, maybe mom, dad, they can't take care of themselves anymore, and you want to help them. If they move in with you and you build them something or renovate substantially something on your home. So for example, you build a mother-in-law quarter, we call them accessory dwelling units, then that piece of property that you just built for them will be exempt from property taxes. Okay, so many of us probably didn't know that one, right? So as we start to get into the age where we need to help our parents out and we want to invite them to come live with us, just know that that is also an option that might help save on property taxes. Military exemptions. Veterans with permanent disability. So if they've been hurt during service and they come over with a permanent disability of some sort, and mind you, here's the thing about a veteran's disability. That doesn't mean that your veteran client has to be in a wheelchair or they can't walk anymore or there's some sort of massive thing that you would even recognize. Many of our clients who are veterans and fully exempt from their funding fee, meaning they've received what's called a service-related disability, got hurt in action where they're continuing to receive some sort of treatment, but we would never know, and just by looking, they may very well be eligible for an exemption of property taxes altogether. Essentially means pay zero. As a matter of fact, right now, there is a bill going throughout the state of Florida that would allow that disabled veteran to receive the benefit of a zero tax base to allow them to qualify for a mortgage loan as well. Where before, or as it stands currently, we're not allowed to use that $0 tax base because they have to apply for it after closing, okay? So even though we know they're not going to pay any property taxes, we still have to qualify them with that tax debt. And then they close, and then they apply for the tax credit or for the tax exemption. So the bill circulating through, I think it's the state Senate right now, would allow that veteran to apply for it during their contract process. So now we can help qualify them with zero taxes, which helps them qualify for the home that they're probably looking for instead of settling for something that they can qualify for / afford, right? So with the zero taxes, they'll be able to afford more, which would be great for a lot of us, including veterans, especially veterans. So the surviving spouse of a deceased vet. So if we know a veteran who's actually passed away, maybe through not just wartime issues either. They could have been a veteran and they've recently passed away, where their surviving spouse can now receive the benefits of a tax exemption as well. Other veterans who are still here but have served at some point, they may be eligible for up to $5,000. Many people don't realize that. They think that they have to have gone to war or something, where even if they were in any type of service and they come back, they may very well be eligible to apply for a tax credit. Active duty exemptions based on a formula. So if you are actively in the military currently, there is a formula based on the amount of time you've been in service that will allow you to get a tax credit as well. So that's something to look into. And you will be getting emailed a packet of information with all the application forms, as well as the processes with Palm Beach County, specific to Palm Beach County, of how to apply for all these various exemptions so you can help your clients. All right, disabled law enforcement and first responders. So the ad valorem tax exemption means if you are in law enforcement and have been disabled, or you're a first responder and have been disabled, or in some sort of first responder profession, you may very well also be eligible for a tax break on your property taxes. Again, go through the application process. There's certain criteria that has to be filled out. Submit that to the property appraiser's office, or give them a quick call and they'll explain all the different criteria to you as well. And it applies to surviving spouses. So if someone was a first responder and does pass in the line of duty, their surviving spouse will also get the benefit of these tax exemptions, which is huge. Institutional exemption, this one mainly for nonprofits, some homes that are also classified as places of, let's say, business, and we've seen some of that right here in Lake Worth even, where maybe it's a charitable foundation that uses their home as the place of business, or a school, right? You've seen homes that are used as schools. Some of those may also be eligible for certain tax breaks. So, do you want to do it yourself or hire an attorney to do it? You could do either one. Typically, if you hire an attorney, their fee is based on a percentage of the tax reduction. So whatever tax amount that they save you, they will take a percentage of that tax, of that amount. Their fee can usually be based on the amount of the tax that's been reduced. But to be quite frank with you, in many cases, it's not really worth doing it with an attorney. A few phone calls to the property appraiser, the tax collector's office, if you're willing to put a little bit of work into it, you'll end up figuring it on your own as well. So totally up to you what you want to use. There are certain attorneys that specialize in this. In my personal opinion, I really think you could end up doing some of the legwork and figuring it out yourself. All right, so how to file an appeal. First, if you have your property appraisal, get it out. Look at all the information on the appraisal. Ask your real estate agent, right? This is what you're going to want to help your clients with. You're the one that's going to be able to provide some comp information that it will help them in their homework process. And then you're going to choose 3 to 5 properties that are essentially comps, the ones that are most like yours, right? We're all in that same business. We're looking for similar properties to the one like ours, in which we're going to appeal the taxes. And then you're going to build a spreadsheet, which we will be emailing to you as well. That spreadsheet is included. It gives you a really great starting point. And then you're going to submit your work to the assessor's office. So now the property appraiser will review it, and they'll tell you whether or not they agree with the findings, and they can essentially send it to the value adjustment board in hopes of getting your property's taxes reduced. And most of the time, this is really just to appeal the tax base, right? So if you think that something is incorrect in the way your property taxes are being listed right now, and you feel like you should be lower, this is where you go through the process. If you're just trying to apply for one of the credits that you might be eligible for, the veterans, the disabled, disability, any one of those, it's a simple couple of pages you submit, and then they'll submit it through their tax credit process. One thing I forgot to mention too, regarding the disability one, so some people don't realize this, but if you have a family member, so let's say it is, in certain cases, your kids, maybe your brother or sister or cousin who you take care of, blind, in a wheelchair, paraplegic, some sort of disability, and they're living in the home with you, you will be able to apply for those tax breaks because of the disability tax credit. All right, so just know, especially in your conversations with clients, now, and they're telling you their story, right? When you're starting to get to know them, they're trying to tell you, oh, I need this many rooms because I take care of my brother, or I need to make sure something is truly wheelchair accessible because of my son or my daughter, they're in a wheelchair. You've got to make sure that that's something you let them know upon closing. Hey, you may very well be able to save money on your property taxes because you can apply for this exemption, right? And that's going to help you, of course, be not just the real estate agent's going to help them find their dream home, but someone that's truly a source of knowledge and information that they're going to want to come back to over and over again to ask other questions and refer their friends to, because you help them not just find their dream home, but save them money during the process. So this is the worksheet. This is what you're going to be receiving in the email packet to you that will essentially looks like an appraisal. It looks like the grid, and that's where you start putting in the information on your property and some of the other properties around you. All right, tips for success. File in advance of the deadline. Key thing, right? They will still accept if you file it after the deadline, but it's a little bit more of a difficult process. So as soon as you get a trim notice, you're going to want to start doing the homework. Ask the assessor's office for help if you need it. They are extremely friendly and extremely helpful. Highly leverage that source of knowledge when you need it. Find out if you need to submit it on paper or online. Most counties now do have a digital process for this, where you can just do it online, and always get a receipt of acknowledgement that they've received it, because that's when the time starts ticking for them to send it to the value adjustment board or start reviewing it. So you just want to make sure you have confirmation receipt that they have received it. And if you will win your appeal and your assessment is reduced, of course, meaning you're going to get a lower tax bill, you're going to want to contact your mortgage company so then they can readjust the amount of escrows. So if your tax base went down lower, that means your monthly payment's going to end up going lower as well, because now you're paying less taxes. So you'll want to make sure you call the escrow department of your mortgage company, so then they can adjust the monthly payment amount. All right, and that's pretty much it for how to do it. It can be a simple process. Hopefully you've learned of at least one, if not two, additional tax breaks that you may not have noticed before, that you can pass along to your clients and hopefully help them save some money. Any questions from the group on anything we talked about? Awesome.
¿Alguna pregunta de alguna cosa que de la presentación de los taxes que tengan?
I live in La Sahachi. You talked about the La Sahachi. What I need to do to see if I can qualify for
one of the exemptions? So in Loxahatchee would be with Palm Beach County, and the packet that he's going to email you has all the different processes, who you talk to, how do you do it online. You've got to go online, really create an account, and then there's a little application. Depending on the exemption you're looking for, you can just fill that out online as well and submit it right through the website.
All right.
Right.
And it's only for your first home, or it could be for your investment property too?
So most of these are going to be based on primary residences where you live, right? Now, but if you need to appeal the taxes on an investment property, you still can't do that, because let's say the investment property you purchase, the county shows it as a 5-bedroom, but it's really a 4-bedroom. You are still eligible to make sure that those taxes are appropriately a 4-bedroom classified instead of 5. But for the exemptions, those for primary home residences, for the appeals, they can be on any property at all. Yeah.
Y eso pasa porque yo te digo, por experiencia personal, yo tuve una casa que estaba listeada como que fuese 4 cuartos dormir, ¿verdad? Entonces me estaban cobrando, como explicaba Wilson, los taxes de una casa de 4 cuartos dormir, ¿verdad? Pero en el fondo la casa no tenía 4 cuartos dormir, tenía 3 cuartos y un den, ¿verdad? Pero ellos estaban clasificando el den como un bedroom, como un cuarto, ¿verdad? Entonces obviamente los taxes míos eran más altos porque estaban identificando esa casa como un cuarto de dormir, que no lo era. Entonces, con relación a esto, eso hubiera sido perfecto, y en un caso, como explicaba Wilson, que es donde yo puedo pelear con los property, con el county y decir, no, esta casa no es de 4 cuartos, esta casa es de 3 cuartos, más un den, y los taxes míos me hubieran bajado, ¿verdad? Pero estas son cosas que una vez no le pone atención, ¿verdad? Y le pasa con los clientes que ustedes tienen y con ustedes mismos con sus casas personales, que a veces no nos damos cuenta que hay muchas formas de ahorrar dinero en los property taxes, que en el fondo los va a ayudar a usted y va a ayudar a sus clientes, ¿verdad? Porque entonces ahora ya no se calcula una casa que van a pagar $500,000 en taxes, ¿verdad? Nosotros recién yo corrí un file donde la casa costaba $500,000 y lo estábamos conversando con Arelis porque decíamos, oh my God, es una casa que se hizo hace 2 años atrás, está construida, ya tiene dueño en la casa, pero la persona está pagando $600 al año en taxes. Una casa de $500,000. Y yo con Ares estábamos golpeando en la cabeza, diciendo, ¿por qué el tax bill está tan bajo, verdad? No, al principio no entendía por qué está tan bajo el tax bill. Obviamente, era porque esta persona calificaba para toda esa sección que decía Wilson, tenía descuento militario, estaba en disability, tenía muchas cosas que obviamente esa persona era una persona que lo hizo y aplicó para el county, ¿verdad? Y solamente pagaba $600 de taxes al año, 500, 600 de taxes al año, por una casa de $500,000. Entonces es real, y a veces nosotros no le ponemos atención a estas cosas, pero estos son detalles que ustedes los van a poner en un bracket distinto como Realtor, porque ahora están educando a los clientes, entonces le están mostrando a los clientes qué beneficios ustedes pueden tener después que compraron esa casa, especialmente que ustedes los conocen y los ven, ¿verdad? Saben si la persona es mayor, saben si la persona tiene disability, saben si los clientes suyos tienen una mamá o un papá que recién trajeron del país y lo tienen que cuidar, es su residencia primaria. Entonces son ventajas que obviamente va a tomar un poco de tiempo, de trabajo, de averiguar, pero son cosas que ustedes le pueden ayudar a los clientes de ustedes, y yo les garantizo, y siempre ha pasado, cuando ustedes hacen algo extra por los clientes, ¿verdad? Ya ustedes crean una relación con ese cliente se le va a quedar con ustedes por vida, porque se dan cuenta que solamente ustedes no están vendiendo una casa y van al siguiente, sino que están haciendo cosas extra para ayudar a ese cliente para beneficio de él. Entonces ya ese cliente usted ya se va a quedar con ustedes por siempre. Recuerden que todo el mundo compra, vende, nadie compra una casa y se queda con esa casa. Lo importante es crear una relación con el cliente, porque cuando ellos tengan esta casa, vendan y compren la otra casa, se van a acordar de, oh my God, este Realtor me ayudó con los taxes de la casa, me ayudó con esto, entonces lo voy a volver a contactar. ¿Qué es lo que nos pasa a nosotros con el deal lending? Esta compañía tiene abierta muchos años, ¿verdad? Y siempre la mentalidad de nosotros y de Arelis, de Wilson, siempre ha sido ayudar a los clientes. Nosotros no miramos una transacción como que vamos a hacer esta transacción, vamos a cerrar y no vamos a ganar la comisión. Siempre tratamos de crear una relación con el cliente y ver cuáles son los mejores beneficios para cada cliente, ¿verdad? ¿Por qué? Porque eso nos diferencia de otro tipo de bancos, ¿verdad? De otro tipo de mortgage companies. Arelis tiene clientes que la llaman de hace 15 años atrás, que ya le ha comprado una casa, y deciden vender la casa y comprar casa de nuevo. La llaman a ella. ¿Por qué? Porque trató a los clientes bien, lo ayudó y estuvo para ellos. Lo mismo conmigo, lo mismo con Wilson. Siempre mirar qué podemos hacer extra para el cliente para ayudarlos. Entonces, en ese sentido, esta presentación de los taxes es un material que ustedes tienen extra para poder ayudar a sus clientes y que ellos se beneficien de la ayuda con los property taxes. ¿Ahora tienes algo?
No, pues muy bien.
Muchas gracias. Let us know if we can help in any way.
So, esa es la parte que hablamos de los property taxes. Wilson, I don't know if you have to go or.
I do. I gotta get back.
Okay.
We're done.
So, yeah, nosotros vamos a continuar con un poco más hablando sobre el mercado de ahora. Y Wilson obviamente está ocupado, tiene otras reuniones que tiene que asistir, ayudar a otros clientes. Entonces, gracias Wilson por venir acá y participar con nosotros.
I'll see you guys later.
Ven, ven.
Oh, let me grab that.
No way. No, es okay. Nada, para las personas que están acá y los que están en la computadora escuchando esta presentación, sí tenemos información relacionada a la presentación de los taxes. Me pueden mandar un mensaje de texto a mí al 561-252-3655. De nuevo, mi número es 561-252-3655 y yo le puedo mandar la información que tenemos sobre la presentación, que los va a guiar en cuál es el proceso de arreglar sus taxes de la propiedad o para sus futuros clientes. De nuevo, como le digo, el teléfono es 561-252-3655. Me mandan su correo electrónico y yo le mando la información que tenemos sobre los property taxes para que lo lean, lo estudien, vean si se sientan cómodos con el proceso. Puede ser un poquito quizás difícil al principio, pero una vez que ya le agarran el ritmo, ¿verdad? Como todo, uno lo hace una o dos veces y ya después aprende y ya se siente más cómodo tratando de conseguir esa información, ¿verdad? Adam?
Might say about this.
Ahorita ya. Otras cosas que queríamos hablarles también es sobre cómo están las cosas en el mercado hoy. Sabemos que las cosas están un poco complicadas, ¿verdad? No tan complicadas, ¿verdad? Las cosas están bien, pero el mercado es como siempre, ¿verdad? Sube, baja, sube, baja. Tienen que tomar ventaja de productos y cosas que tenemos, ¿verdad? Lo importante es que la comunicación, como yo siempre he dicho en todas las reuniones, es muy importante la comunicación entre los realtors y el banco con el que están utilizando, ¿verdad? Hoy en día yo creo que es más que importante crear una relación entre el realtor y el banco, ¿verdad? El banco seamos nosotros o sea otro tipo de banco, de que una relación, ¿verdad? Porque ahora estamos en un momento que tiene que todo el mundo ayudarse, ¿verdad? Tiene que haber comunicación, tiene que haber ayuda exactamente con los productos y buscar formas de cómo conseguirle a estos clientes que puedan comprar su casa y puedan obtener su sueño, ¿verdad? Tenemos muchos programas que son interesantes, ¿verdad? Que hemos estado usando bastante, ¿verdad? Como es el préstamos convencionales solamente con 1% de entrada, ¿verdad? Nosotros cada vez que presentamos programas no hablamos por hablar, sino que son programas reales que cierran, ¿verdad? No nos gusta decir, inventar programas que o porque alguien lo escuchó, o lo vieron en televisión, o lo leyeron en la computadora, ¿verdad? Porque la mayoría de esos programas, ¿verdad?, son complicados y tienen sus restricciones, entonces no vamos a dar falsa información, ¿verdad? Las cosas que nosotros le decimos que se pueden hacer son las cosas que hemos tenido experiencia porque ya han cerrado, ¿verdad? Como le explicaba, el 1% de entrada convencional. Obviamente el cliente tiene que calificar para un préstamo convencional, pero pueden entrar con el 1% de entrada nada más, ¿verdad? Que en este momento, como le digo, eso es una ayuda bastante porque la gente a veces los clientes tienen ingresos, tienen crédito, pero no tienen reserva para comprar. Entonces, hoy en día el 1% trabaja. Lo hemos cerrado con gente de aquí, Realtor de la oficina. Entonces, no es que lo estamos diciendo por decir. Es un programa buenísimo. Pueden usar también otro programa que es lo que se llama el One Year Buy Down. Bueno, hay 1 year, 2 year, 3 year buy down, ¿verdad? Pero entre más años usted compra en el buy down, ¿qué quiere decir? Que el interés, si el interés está en 6.875 hoy, van a empezar en 4.875 el primer año, el segundo año van a subir al 5.875 y el tercer año van a subir al 6.875, que es prácticamente un ejemplo, ¿verdad?, de un interés que puede estar hoy en día, ¿verdad? Depende del crédito, depende de cuánto dinero ponen de entrada, ¿verdad? Pero se le da una flexibilidad a su cliente para por lo menos tener un break sea el primer año, ¿verdad? O sea 2 años, o sea 3 años de tener un pago mensual menos, ¿verdad? Y esperando que, como se dice, si todo sale bien, los intereses deberían bajar de aquí a 2 años, 1 año y medio. Nosotros pensamos que para que esto tome efecto y los intereses bajen, va a pasar por lo menos 1 año. ¿Por qué? Porque la inflación sigue un poquito alta. El gobierno quiere que la inflación baje al 2%. Una vez que obtengan ese 2%, cerca de 2%, es que ellos van a empezar a bajar los intereses de a poquito. 1/4 punto, a los otros 3 meses 1/4 punto. ¿Qué pasa? Van a empezar a bajar, pero para que eso refleje los intereses, quizá va a pasar otros 6 meses más o 1 año más para que empecemos a mirar los intereses más bajos. Entonces, con estos programas de buy down, las personas que optan por hacer esto, de aquí a que los intereses bajen, tienen la opción de refinanciar. Nunca van a pagar el interés de hoy, sino que van a pagar el interés más bajo. Y obviamente de aquí que los intereses bajen, antes que tengan que pagar el interés original, pueden refinanciar y agarrar el interés que esté en el mercado en ese día cuando quieran hacer refinanciamiento, ¿verdad? Como le digo, es importante de que trabajen. Nosotros siempre lo hemos dicho, siempre estamos para ustedes, para ayudarlos a hacer lo mejor que es para sus clientes, a ser honestos y honrados. Esos son los primeros principales, ¿verdad? No inventar ni mentir, sino que siempre ser honrados con los clientes y con ustedes, porque entendemos que este es el trabajo de ustedes y el trabajo de nosotros. Entonces tenemos que ser realísticos y tratar de ayudar a todo el mundo que se pueda, ¿verdad?
Bueno, no sé si tienen hambre o no, pero algo interesante que tenemos para el mes de noviembre es, esto algunas veces lo hemos hecho antes, y es como si fuera un incentivo, es el incentive para los clientes también, pues muchos de ellos tienen justo el dinero que hace falta, o les falta algún dinero, pero no se lo damos antes, sino el día del cierre le damos un crédito para el appraisal, entonces no tienen que pagar el appraisal. Solamente si el appraisal vale 525, vale 500, lo que sea, le estamos dando un incentivo de hasta $500 del appraisal. Entonces eso es algo que pagan al frente y ya cuando cierran, entonces se lo regresamos de eso. Eso es algo que también le pueden decir a un cliente que lo puede ayudar. Entonces estamos haciendo algunas ventas, como hacen las tiendas, para ayudarlos a ustedes también, para poder que los clientes se les beneficie y no gastes tanto dinero upfront, porque sabemos que tenemos su down payment, sus inspecciones, su appraisal que tienen que pagar, pero aunque sea con esto, entonces se ahorran con algo. Entonces, si tienen algo, una presentación que quieren hacer, first time presentations, eso es algo que a lo mejor es un motivo o algo que les va a llamar la atención a ellos. Entonces, aquí estamos para ayudarlos.
So, por el mes de noviembre, lo vamos a mostrar aquí para que lo vean en la cámara, ¿verdad? Ideal Lending está dando, como explicaba Are, el rebate del appraisal, ¿verdad? Es un incentivo que estamos buscando fórmulas como ayudar a las personas, a los clientes, ¿verdad? Entonces, el día del cierre, nosotros le vamos a regresar lo que el cliente pagó por el appraisal, ¿verdad? Como incentivo, pero solamente por el mes de noviembre, ¿ok? Yo le voy a pasar estos papelitos, ¿verdad? Cuando termine la presentación, y también los voy a poner en la oficina principal, y cualquier consulta que tengan, nos pueden de nuevo llamar a mi teléfono, que es el 561-252-365, 252-365, o Arelis al 561-951-3885. So, recuerden, el appraisal, $500 de rebate antes del cierre para sus clientes como incentivo para ayudarlos a que puedan obtener más clientes. So, yo creo que no sé si tienen alguna consulta o algo. Por ahora es todo lo que tenemos. Gracias por asistir a la presentación hoy día. De verdad que le agradecemos haber tomado su tiempo hoy para venir para acá. Yo sé que un poco...
¿Tienen tarjeticas los que están aquí o no? Yo sé que tengo los números, pero siempre en cada clase me gusta ver.
So, yo le voy a pasar esto. Voy a apagar aquí para que no suene.
Todos estuvieron aquí ayer, ¿no? Sí. Sí, ¿verdad? Oh, ¿que me despide ya? Sí. Bueno, ya terminamos y muchas gracias por escucharnos y que tengan un buen día. Gracias.